Whenever you listen to that sound of music, you know what the time says. And that's because we're set to talk about power. Well, not power. Is there power? We're talking about power solutions. And that's where we stop the complaining and start talking about what we can do to light up our cities and our environments. That's what Power Solutions stands for. And it's a great delight to welcome again to this part of the divide my co-hosts, who is miles away from me, but we can communicate in real time and have conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, on this segment, I'll be joined by, as usual, by Dr. Wiebe Boer, who joins me now. Hi, Wiebe. Good to see you. How are you today? All right. Yes, can you hear me?
Why are you in a suit? Why are you in a suit today? What's going on?
It's a Monday, and I felt like Collins just look a little serious. You know, I'm just saying.
All right. All right. Okay.
I just love it. I love the shirt and the tie, so I decided to put it on today.
Okay.
Really.
All right.
Good to see you. And why are you in a black T-shirt?
No. This is traditional now.
Oh, okay. I didn't see. Okay, clearly. Yeah, fantastic.
See?
Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
Looks like something from Niger Delta.
Yeah.
Great. Well, good to see you. Let's get into it, Wiebe. Today we're talking energy, women, and agriculture, and we have a special guest. Would you bring her up now? Because Lagos is waiting.
Absolutely. So this morning we have Habiba Ali, who's joining us all the way from Kaduna. She's the CEO of SOSAI Renewables. So good morning, Habiba. Thank you for joining today. You're on mute, Habiba.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Great.
Yes, now
That's
we can. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Wiebe. I am doing well. Yeah.
All right, good. So,
Welcome.
Collins, we've been trying to get Habiba on the show, but Habiba is just too busy up in the north, and she just doesn't have time for Lagos. So, thankfully for this new technology, we can now get our celebrity from Kaduna on the show.
That's
So,
right.
Habiba, if you can just kick us off a little bit by giving us a bit of your background and how you ended up being such a big leader in the renewable space in Nigeria and actually Africa. Habiba, did you hear the question?
Sorry, the internet shook a bit. Can you please say that again?
Okay, yeah. So I was just saying, could you just kick us off by letting us know how you got into the renewable space and how you became such a leader in the space in Nigeria and Africa?
Okay, so thank you very much, Wiebe, and hi, Collins. Nice
Hi.
to see you. You actually look good in your suit, eh?
Thank you.
So basically, I was born and brought up in Kaduna, and my mom used to have a roadside food stall. We sold on the open, food cooked on the open fire by the light of a kerosene lantern for years on end. I mean, that's how I was sent to the university. So of course we helped my mom with that. And growing up, I got to find out about renewable energy somehow, and we started I was working with an NGO. We founded an NGO in renewable energies, and we did the first improved cook stove CDM project. CDM is actually the Clean Development Mechanism, and that's how my interest in renewables started. And this project allowed us to go into communities and rural areas. And growing up as a child of a policeman that was constantly being transferred to communities, and he preferred to always take rural areas because we could actually do farming and everything. This got me interested in the rural communities, especially in the north, and just the camaraderie of the people in the north, especially in the rural communities, made me feel at home. Through my work with the NGO, I had to go for the Partnership for Clean Indoor Air forum in Uganda one time, and I got to find out about how if a person stays by an open fire or by a kerosene lantern and there was this indoor air pollution, the person had smoked an equivalent of, for every hour the person stayed there, the person had smoked an equivalent of 2 packs of cigarette. That just scared me. And all I could think about was, this is what I lived my life with. We cooked on open fires, we buy the kerosene lantern. And so does that mean we've been smoking cigarette all our lives, invariably? And then they also talked about all of the health issues that could have happened because of this. And one of them was actually the eyesight, the bronchial issues. And my sister died of something that was also bronchitis related, and I was like, could all this be related? And that just made me think, and I couldn't take my mind off of it. And after that side event, I was stepping out of the hall, and there was this person at that time. This was in 2009. There was this lady at that time peddling solar lanterns from Barefoot Park, and I just immediately made the connection. And I'm saying, wow, if this is lighting that could actually illuminate space and not have fumes, then this is where we should be going, And so I immediately started talking about, we had a discussion as to how to, acquire the systems and buy them. And at that time, where I lived, I had to drive by a motor park. And when you pass by a motor park, you see women selling late into the night by the light of the kerosene lamp. And these were the women I was constantly thinking about. And as soon as I was able to get some of the lanterns, these women actually went and exchanged their solutions with the solar lanterns and gave them time. I told them, use it for 1 month, let's see. So every week, my team and I were going to take, records and finding out how it was doing and everything. And that's how SOSAI really started. I was leveraging on my relationship with the NGO, and then, with this one again. So I immediately started talking to the people, finding out what worked for them, and and then some of the women actually started telling me they had people who wanted the systems as well. So I knew there was a market there, and I started talking to them about how they could be resellers. So that's how we started reselling solar lanterns from Barefoot Park at that time through these women, and we got the support of Kiva, and that's how it just took off from there. And the more we went into the communities running our projects, the more the needs changed. So we work from a needs point. We don't just say, these are the solutions and we give it to you. We want you to tell us. We give you the options available, and we allow you to share with us what works for you. And that's how it leads to my agricultural and energy nexus as well.
Wow, great. Very inspiring story. And sorry again for your sister. I heard that part. But most importantly, that motivated you to start something. So tell us about your company, SOSAI Renewable Energy. Now, what made you decide to really start this? I mean, you said that in most of your first, when you're answering the first question, but it'd be nice to know, in specific terms, more about the SOSAI Renewables. What would you tell us?
Okay, so SOSAI is, like I said, that was really, 2009 was the beginning of the thoughts behind SOSAI. And this situation, the story I just shared, was actually the reason why I wanted to start SOSAI, because I, at that time, felt there was a huge need for people to, understand that there were options available, and we didn't have to be sick. We didn't have to also suffer to get this. And having worked with the NGO prior to that had worked with improved cook stoves, I now decided to piggyback on what we were doing on that level to also see how do we, explain to people in the communities as well that there exists other options for lighting as well, and not just for cooking. And then now make it very blatantly clear that just cooking on an open fire could actually kill you, and it could actually mean a lot of health issues for your children. So we started selling renewable energy. We started selling solar lanterns, and with time, at the same Uganda, I met with a group, a company from the US, Sequest Capital, who wanted to start another improved cook stove project, using it as a CDM project as well. And we got into talks with them, and they wanted to come and do baseline studies, due diligences, and all of the things that were necessary to get a CDM project registered with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And so when we had that discussion, they decided there was this need to contract someone to do it. And luckily they contracted us. And that was very huge for SOSAI, because that was where we got all the financing needed to get the organization started. And we did all of the work with them. Registering a clean development mechanism project is a very difficult task. It takes time. And so through all of that, we were working with them, and they kept paying us for our services and all of that. So at the end of it all, they said, well, now we're here. We need someone to implement the project for us. And we now started. I was actually helping them to look for a company to implement, because at that time, I didn't want to be a competitor to the NGO I was working with. But with time, I found out that the kind of technology they were going to use was different. A lot of things were different, and it didn't seem like a competition, more like it was like complementary. So we decided to run it. So that's how our major work in the beginning, when we really did set up SOSAI as an organization in 2010, was our improved cook stove work for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And through that project, we've deployed over 60,000 improved cook stoves. But the opportunity to go into the communities, I will always say, gave us the eye opener to see all the other issues that needed solutions in the rural areas. And that's how we started building upon what we were doing and trying to, find solutions for people. And when you start working with people in the communities and you keep visiting, the next thing people start asking, they turn you to like a messiah of some sort. And they want to know, okay, now we have this problem. Can you give us this solution? And you find a mechanism that you can use to have that discussion and run it. So SOSAI does improved cook stoves. We do solar lighting, and then we moved from solar lighting to the multi-lamps, and then we started doing home systems, and we just grew from there. And then we did mini grids, and like I said, we are. As much as we want to make money, we also want to do business for the good of society. So we're not structured as an NGO, we're structured as...
All right, I think we lost sound for a moment there, but you made the point and answered, and also you've gone on to tell us. Yeah, great. So we lost it for a moment when you were saying that you're not structured as an NGO from there, and yes, absolutely.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So I was saying we're not an NGO. We're structured as a social enterprise. We do business for the good of society. Okay. Even though it is for the good of society, it is not for free. We just try to find out, workable ways to make it affordable for the people in the communities. So what we've been doing is that we've deployed mini grids that are powering, technologies that I will still talk about as we go on. Yeah. And we also do solar home kits. We do solar for hospitals, for schools, and so we try to find, we try to pitch ourselves in the position of solutions providers.
Okay.
So we're not product agnostic. We're more like there's a problem and we need to find a solution that suits that problem.
Okay. So thank you, Habiba. And so for Collins and all the listeners in Lagos, SOSAI means plenty, right? It's a Hausa word for plenty.
Yes, so I was going to say that, Wiebe, because I've heard people say Nagode, SOSAI
for integrity, depends on the context.
Look, I've heard a couple of people say when I do something to them, they'll say Nagode, SOSAI, and I was going to ask, what does it mean? It means thank you very much in that case.
Thank you very much. Exactly.
Okay,
great.
Thank you very well.
So Collins, that's your Hausa lesson for today. So listen, so you've already talked about the products and all that, but give us a sense of, with SOSAI, what have been some of the major successes with what SOSAI has accomplished, and what you're most proud of?
Well, most proud of is what I've been able to do with women. SOSAI at a point was... in 2016, we decided to officially launch a women's group called Matan Arewan SOSAI Initiative. And this is registered as an NGO under SOSAI. We look at it like a CSR for us. What we were able to do, and what we were thinking to do at that time, was to advance products to women. So they resell and then take off their own commission and return the money to us. We had actually been always doing that, but we really wanted to institutionalize that. And while doing the launch and everything, we had women asking us for solutions like, I don't want to sell solar lanterns, but I want to use the opportunity that solar brings to us to do business. So that means women wanted refrigerators to sell drinks. They wanted a kiosk to display their products in their communities and all of that. And so we found ourselves actually listening to women and providing what I call powered by SOSAI. So we power a woman business owner with a refrigerator, and we allow her an affordable way of paying off. So every month as she makes money off of that fridge, she's able to also pay SOSAI something. So it's like a leasehold kind of agreement where they pay off for the product. And most times we give them for like 24 months, they are able to pay us off for the system. So that's why I say we're doing business for the good of society, but we're not really it's not about the business, it's about the solutions. And then one of the biggest things that I think we've done that really is what being proud about is what we were able to achieve with the UNFCCC. I was with a project in the past at the NGO where it was the first registered improved cook stove project. It had all the co-benefits and everything, but it did not do the numbers that we did. I think at the time we finished our project, we were the highest selling of an improved cook stove project because we were selling CO2 up to about 200,000 tons per annum. And that meant, even more, sorry, I think it's a little more. And for us, it meant, and for SOSAI, we had a share of carbon that was about $2 per stove. And that meant a lot of money for us. At least we were making nothing less than 150,000 every year. But then that meant that we were able to put ourselves on a certain pedestal. And I remember at the time, whenever the UNFCCC had to have methodology changes, methodology adjustments, they always called out to me. I had to go to Bonn to sit down and do these meetings with them. And that really makes me feel very proud because that means I could actually contribute my own to making sure the world was kept clean. And this led to me being on a 1-year intervention with GIZ called the Practitioners Dialogue on Climate Investments. And I was listed as an advisor on that. And I spent 1 year on that intervention. We had 6 meetings to develop prototypes that could be used to do climate interventions. And, investors could actually look at these kind of interventions and fund them. And this was actually targeted at the Global Green Climate Fund.
Great. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Power Solutions, so Nigeria's number one for talk, 99.3 Nigeria Info. And we have a special guest. When I say we, my co-host and I, that's Dr. Wiebe Boer and my humble self, Collins. We have Habiba Ali, the CEO of SOSAI Renewables. And she's talked a lot about what we're focused on today, energy, women, and we'll take the next question, which will link us to agriculture. Now, let's talk about the link between agriculture and power. Have you always been in that space? Have you always played in that link? And then secondly, why is it important? And how can we encourage more of these links between links of this nature, agriculture and power? How would you respond to that, Habiba?
So, with the global gender lens approach to a lot of things and approach to energy access programs, the millions of dollars flowing to energy access initiatives around the globe can have a greater impact on women's empowerment. And when you look at the north of Nigeria and you look at especially everywhere in the north, one thing you cannot divorce from the north is agriculture. At a point, I remember growing up, most of agricultural produce was gotten from the north. You found maize, rice, millet, sorghum, whatever it is, tomatoes. You had trucks and trucks driving down south to deliver this produce to people in the south, and even for exports. I remember the groundnut pyramids and all of that. So you can remember that in the north, one of the things that actually drives our economy is agriculture, and it was a huge contributor to the GDP at a time before energy took over. Oil took over. So, how do you divorce women from agriculture in the north? It's not even feasible because the women, if nothing, apart from the fact that a lot of the women also now in the rural communities are working hand in hand with their husbands to farm, they are mostly the ones that are responsible with food processing. The men farm, harvest, and bring it home. But when it comes to processing the food to a point where it can be sold in the market, the women actually take over that responsibility. And where do you actually need a lot of the energy for farming activities from point A to point Z? It's actually in the processing. So that's where you need energy. Because what you had in the past was women pounding millet to dehusk it. This was a time where women had to use the stone to grind the thing into flour. There was a lot of manual labor that women had to put in just to actually, process the farm produce, yeah? And if they had to dry tomatoes, they are the ones that do the cutting and go and lay it on the ground and all of that. So there's no way you can divorce agriculture from energy. And like I said, going into the communities regularly made us find that this was a need that women had. And So you can now imagine, you can now immediately tell the nexus between energy, women, and agriculture. There's no way you can divorce women from that agricultural space, and there's no way you can take away the benefit they will get if they had a good source of energy, giving them that solution to become better in their activities. So now we're going to a point where people want to use a lot more want to do a lot more farming. We're now talking of time where we want to now have all year round farming. What you had in the past was people farming at a specific time of the season. People do not farm generally over the year. People farm between May to September, and they are done it until another year. So if you look at a lot of women who are now farming, and currently even divorcing it from the past and looking at now, there's a lot of women who have even gone out there and gone to school and learned about more better agricultural practices. They are coming back to own farms in communities. And I was speaking with on AEF last week, and I was one of the people we used to do the setting of the scene setting for the case study. Is a farm owner called Green Terrace in South Africa. And one of her major problems was getting the right kind of irrigation tools, right kind of food processing tools, and the right kind of energy to run her farming activities. So for irrigation, we have solar irrigation that makes irrigation easier, faster, and even less polluting. Because for every gallon of fuel you put into a generator that's going to power a normal irrigation kit, it's emitting 2.774 tons of CO2 to the atmosphere, and that's a lot if by the time you accumulate what it does in a year. So if we can actually replace this with solar powered irrigation kits, which are actually more efficient, you can imagine what it will do to the farming industry. Currently, a lot of women I know in the north do not bother to do irrigation or farm across the season simply because they cannot afford to buy the irrigation tool, the generator, and the fuel to constantly fuel the generator and keep it running. So imagine that we replace that with a solar irrigation tool, and they can actually pay over time. That automatically just changes the economic situation of that woman. And so this is where I see the connection. And if it is for food processing, imagine those activities they were doing with their hands. Now we have better milling machines that can actually be powered by solar. And we have the ones that can dehusk, we have the ones that can even remove corn from the cob, we have the ones that can actually grind it into flour. So it's taking a lot of manual labor away from them, and then it will enable the women to become entrepreneurs, and they can actually ensure that their communities are flourishing and supporting the health and education for all of them.
Our time is rather almost fast spent, but well said,
Let me take
Habiba.
one more question. Let me take one more question. So if the listeners are confused, our guest is Habiba, and I am Wiebe. So I know it's a bit confusing. So Collins, you probably feel a little left out today because your name doesn't quite fit.
I mean, there's got to be the odd one to balance it up,
Yeah. So Habiba, look, final question from me. And you referred to this earlier, but it's about carbon credits, right?
Yeah.
And the carbon market has actually been around for I think 20 years or so. But you almost don't hear about it in Nigeria, and I understand that Nigeria does not really access that market in any significant way. But you've actually been doing some of that. So you've talked about it previously, but just what could a really functioning carbon market in Nigeria mean actually for some of these economies that you're talking about, the agriculture economy, solar, all that?
Okay, so currently, what carbon? The only way I can really think about carbon for the agriculture and energy nexus now is for those machines that are already in use. For example, we're using milling machines that are using fuel, petrol or diesel. And like I said, diesel and petrol emit at least 2.74 tons of CO2 per gallon. And so you can imagine how many gallons of CO2 fuel we're using, and then how much emissions that is costing to the atmosphere. So just replacing that machine with a solar powered one is already like eliminating all of that carbon. So that's what the carbon market wants to understand. What do you have that is currently causing emissions now, and you can replace it with a cleaner technology? And then for each, and that's why you see I know the tons of CO2 that fuel will emit, because that's what I have to know. Because 2.74 tons, if that machine can use, like, let's say 100 gallons in a month, I can quantify that. And I say, okay, for every solar powered milling machine I've been able to install, replacing, and it's not for technology that is not replacing an existing one that is emitting. So it must be that you're replacing something that's already causing problems in the atmosphere. So you have to then take that away, replace it with this one. So you do a baseline study capturing all of this, find the right methodology, all of the methodologies that the UN has for this carbon credits, and plug your project into it. Design a project identification note and send it to the UN. The UN will then do what they call a verification exercise and send auditors to come check if what you're claiming is true. And then from there, it goes on to all of the other processes that is involved in the carbon market. But simply put, you can then be paid for every ton of CO2 that you've been able to save. So per annum, it is cumulated. How much has your technology replaced and how many? So for each ton of CO2 you replace, it has a cost. So in the beginning, when we started the carbon market, it was more fantastic. It was about $15 to the ton of CO2. But the carbon market has come down a bit now. So except if you get a good buyer, it could range from between $4 to $10. It depends. And it depends on the kind of mechanism that you're using.
Certainly, Wiebe, we are going to still maybe have a part 2 of this conversation. But I must say, Habiba, it's been quite inspiring listening to what you're doing. And well done.
So much.
Indeed. So, Wiebe, we have to go. Take us home right now in 2 seconds. The time is up. Bye.
2 seconds.
Just
okay,
kidding.
Well, have a great day. Have a great week.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you again,
so much.
Habiba,
That's
for coming.
very 2 seconds. Thank you, Colin.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Habiba.
Absolutely. That's much we have on Power Solutions today. Coming up next will be the news, and after that, you'll be listening to The Sunny Side. My name is Collins Teke. Bye for now.